So one of my main hurdles for switching to NeoVim was this perception that multiple cursors aren't supported. Um, Through lots of reading and experimenting, I discovered that modal editing is actually far superior and maybe way more flexible than multiple cursor type work. So I thought I'd just share my main strategies when wanting to do that kind of thing, and hopefully can save you some reading and experimenting. The first one is block editing. Should be very familiar to anyone familiar with multiple cursors, and that's just the idea that you can select a block of text and change it, and say the quick brown fox hops over the lazy dog. You'll see it looks a bit different. Only after you escape the mode does it take effect. You obviously also can bulk insert some text. So if I select a block like that and I do capital I and I do hello and I press escape, then that text appears there. But what if your text is not in a block format? So let's say you have two characters over there. Um, your next option is pattern editing. This is by far my most favorite one, and it's based on the idea that you can search for patterns. So I can search here for brown using /, and now that goes into a pattern. If I press next, it will obviously search for that pattern, and I can actually change that pattern with this device here. So it's change GN, so change the next pattern. So I can do change GN and make that the quick blue fox, and then here is the sort of secret sauce is obviously the repeat motion in Vim. So if I do dot 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 dot, that repeats that motion. It gets a bit annoying searching for a specific pattern, having to type out the word you're looking for. Um, this is where your star and your pound sign or asterisk and pound sign are super useful. So if I am on a token, let's say I'm over hops over here, if I just do star, it selects the word and puts it as a pattern and jumps to the next instance. So I can do n to jump to the next one. But now since that pattern is already matched, I can change it again, and I can leaps over, and same thing, dot 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 away. So I use this all the time, not just for changing things, but if I'm on a specific token, I can just do star to see all the instances, and I've mapped my leader in to just unhighlight that. So if I don't want to see that highlight anymore, very useful for quickly sort of visually verifying where a token appears in your current editor. The next one is find and replace, and that is, as the name suggests, very similar to just finding and replacing in VS Code, but it uses a sed syntax under the hood. If you're not familiar with that, it's worth learning. Just the most basics is all I know and is sufficient for most instances. So let's say, for example, in this case, I wanted to replace all the commas with semicolons. Now I could obviously just search for comma, and I can follow the same pattern and replace all of them like so. Let's just undo that. My next option is to highlight the block of text. So if I do visualize in paragraph, and I want to enter into find replace mode, then I hit colon, and you'll see in the bottom of my screen there the prompt has appeared, and now I can start the set expression to say s / to search for a character, and you can actually see I previously searched comma, so it was in my pattern, so it automatically highlights it, which means I could actually skip that putting in that character, but let's, for completeness for now, just put it in there. So I'm going to say search for comma and replace with a semicolon, and by default the first item is changed, and I can put a G at the end for global. And that would do the same thing. But what makes the search and replace quite nice is obviously I don't have to do it on all the lines. If I just select visually these two and enter search mode, like I said, comma is already in the pattern, so I could just omit it and move straight to what I want to replace it with, semicolon, and I can do global. If I obviously put the comma in, nothing changes. But if I put the word Jane in, then the word Jane gets replaced by the semicolon. A common thing you also might want to do is to split a line over multiple lines. So let's say everywhere where there's a comma, I just want a new line. Same thing, find the comma, replace it with garage return, and do so globally. The fourth strategy is to do a rename, and I also use this all the time. If you're not editing raw text, but you're actually editing code, which most of the time you would be, you should be using an LSP to give you your syntax highlighting and completion and annotations and all of the above. You can use the rename feature to rename a specific token. So let's say I want to rename key to something else, but obviously I don't want to rename all instances of that word key. I want to specifically rename this struct value there. So I would just do leader rename, and I'm going to make it hello, whatever. And obviously that one and that one where the struct pair was used is now renamed. And then finally, you have macros, and I use this very seldomly. It's only if I've got some bit of unstructured text it's just not appropriate to use sed or something. I just want to quickly do something in my editor, then I'll set up a macro. The first one is technically not a macro. I just call this simple repeat, and so that is if you have a single expression command that you can quickly repeat that. So let's say I want to add a semicolon to the end of each line here. I would jump to the end with capital A, with goes into append mode as well, and add the semicolon. And if I exit and go down, it will just add it to the end of the line. And using repeat. And even if I was at the beginning of the line, if I hit repeat, it obviously adds it at the end of the line because it was a single command. So technically a single instruction macro that you just repeat with the dot. Then an actual macro would be to start recording. So you always record into a register. So you hit Q to say I want to initiate recording, and then I select a register. I almost always use A. You'll see why now. So now I'm recording, so any action I take will be recorded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the end of the line and append, hit backspace, escape, and I'm happy with that macro. And I'm just going to hit Q again to end the recording. Now I can repeat that macro by hitting @ and then into the register I recorded in. And then on my keyboard, my @ symbol and my A symbol are on the same key, just in different layers. So it's quite a quick instruction for me to do. So if I jump to this line and do @A, it repeats the macro to do that instruction. If I select 2 lines, it will run the macro over both lines. So doing @A, it does that, and I can keep going @A, and it just repeats that command. One thing worth mentioning is if you, let's say, visually select a block of text and you want to reselect the same block of text, you can just do GV. That will reselect the same block. So if you're doing multiple edits over the same block, you want to do multiple passes, as it were, you do GV, just select the same block if it was some specific set. So those are my 5 strategies. If you have your own, feel free to share them. That'd be great. Thanks a bunch.